Jennifer Martinez freezes as she watches her 11-year-old daughter, Emma, shake violently backstage at the school theater in Austin, Texas. For 3 weeks, the girl had inexplicable seizures whenever the drama teacher, Mr. Richard Hayes, called her to private rehearsals in room 14. "Please, Mother, don't make me come back," Emma whispered with eyes full of terror. When Jennifer finally breaks into that locked room, what she finds goes far beyond any mother's worst nightmare. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back a few weeks when everything seemed normal and safe in Jennifer and Emma Martinez's lives. Jennifer Martinez was 42 years old and worked as an office manager at a consulting firm in downtown Austin. Since the divorce 5 years ago, she had dedicated herself completely to raising Emma on her own, making sure her daughter had everything she needed, but most importantly, a lot of love and attention. Jennifer has always been that kind of mom who attends school meetings, knows teachers by name, checks homework, and never misses an important presentation or event of her daughter. His routine was tough. He worked from 8 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. Then he picked up Emma from school and spent the nights together preparing dinner, talking about the day, watching a movie, or simply enjoying each other's company. Emma Martinez, at the age of 11, was a girl full of life, outgoing and with a smile that lit up any room. Since she was a little girl, she was fascinated by the theater, loved to imitate movie characters, create elaborate stories with her dolls, and perform for her mother in the living room. When she turned 7, Jennifer enrolled Emma in drama classes in the local community, and since then, the girl's passion has only grown. Emma dreamed of being an actress, talking with shining eyes about one day being on the Broadway stage or even in Hollywood movies. He was a sweet, confident child who made friends easily and always had a funny story to tell when he came home from school. Lincoln Middle School, where Emma attended 6th grade, was in a quiet, middle-class neighborhood in Austin. It was a well-rated school with dedicated teachers and a strong emphasis on arts and sports, in addition to the traditional academic curriculum. The school's theater program was especially renowned in the region, thanks to the work of Mr. Richard Hayes. Richard Hayes was 38 years old and had been a drama teacher at Lincoln Middle School for 8 years. He was loved by parents and students alike, always described as dedicated, patient, and talented. Her theater productions regularly won regional festivals in Texas, and several of her alumni had won performing arts scholarships at prestigious universities. Mr. Hayes was tall, wore modern-frame spectacles, had neat brown hair, and always wore dress shirts with elegant trousers. He spoke articulately, used theatrical metaphors in his everyday conversations, and had that natural charisma that made people feel special when they talked to him. In the school community, he was seen as a treasure, someone who truly cared about the artistic development of children. In this video, you'll discover how one mother trusted her maternal instinct even when everyone said she was overreacting. You'll see how small signs, which most would ignore, became the key to saving your daughter from a terrifying situation. You will understand how the courage to question authority figures, even when they seem untouchable, can be the difference between tragedy and protection. You'll witness how Jennifer Martinez, an ordinary working mother from Austin, transformed into a determined investigator and then a protective warrior when she realized something was deeply wrong. Every detail here shows how predators hide behind impeccable reputations, and how no position of respect should be above the safety of a child. This is a story about maternal instinct, about believing in subtle signs when everyone around sees only normality, and about the courage to act even in fear of the consequences. If you've made it this far, it's because real history interests you. Help this content reach more people, leave the like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell. September arrived with that typical Texas heat, and with it came the excitement of the new theatrical season at Lincoln Middle School. Jennifer vividly remembered the day Emma came home, practically jumping for joy, with a crumpled paper in her hands and the brightest eyes she'd seen in months. "Mom! Mom, you won't believe it!" Emma screamed before she even closed the front door. "I did it! I got the lead role!" Jennifer was preparing a snack in the kitchen when she heard the excitement in her daughter's voice. He turned quickly, drying his hands on the tea towel, and saw Emma running towards him with a smile that took up her whole face. The main role. "Emma, this is amazing!" Jennifer hugged her daughter tightly, feeling her heart tighten with pride and emotion. "Tell everything. What will it be? It's a play about Alice in Wonderland, but it's a modern version, you know? Mr. Hayes wrote the script especially for us. I'm going to be Alice. Alice, mother. The role that everyone wanted." At that moment, Jennifer felt tears of joy in her eyes. She knew how hard Emma had worked, how many times she had practiced her lines in front of the mirror, how many hours she had devoted to acting classes after school. Seeing her daughter achieve something she wanted so much was one of the greatest gifts a mother could receive. "I'm so proud of you, my love. You deserve it. You have worked hard and your talent is being recognized. Mr. Hayes said that I have a natural gift for the stage, that I can convey real emotions and not just memorize lines. He said he rarely sees that in someone so young." Jennifer smiled, feeling gratitude for having teachers like Mr. Hayes in Emma's life. He seemed to really care about children's development, not only taught theatrical techniques, but encouraged his students to believe in themselves. "When is the premiere? I need to mark my calendar and let Grandma know. She'll want to come from Houston to watch it for sure. The play is at the end of November, before Thanksgiving. We have 2 months of rehearsals. Mr. Hayes said it will be intense, but it will be worth it." In the following weeks, the Martinez family's life revolved around the play. Emma came home every day, talking about rehearsals, about the other students in the cast, about Mr. Hayes's creative ideas for set design and costumes. Jennifer would pick her up from school at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, after rehearsals, and on the way home, Emma wouldn't stop talking. "Today, we rehearsed the crazy tea scene. Mr. Hayes brought real cups and old teapots for us to use. He said that we need to feel the objects to make the scene more real. He seems very dedicated," Jennifer commented as she drove through the streets of Austin, watching the orange sky of the Texan sunset. "He's the best teacher I've ever had, Mom. He really understands theater. Do you know when someone not only teaches, but lives what they teach? That's just the way he is." Jennifer smiled, happy to see her daughter so excited and inspired. Sometimes she arrived early at school and watched the rehearsals from the empty audience in the auditorium. "I saw Mr. Hayes working with the group of approximately 20 children, guiding movements, adjusting speeches, creating an environment that was both professional and fun. He was patient when a student forgot to speak, encouraging when someone felt unsafe, and always had a word of recognition for each child's effort." "Very well, Emma," projected her voice more. "Remember, the people in the back of the audience also need to hear every word," he said, demonstrating with broad gestures how to use the body to give the character more presence. Jennifer watched these interactions and felt reassured. Her maternal instinct, that internal radar that all mothers develop, detected nothing wrong. Mr. Hayes kept an appropriate distance from the children, never played inappropriately, always had other students or occasionally a production assistant present during rehearsals. The door to the auditorium was open. Parents could come in and watch whenever they wanted. Everything looked transparent and professional. Other mothers with whom Jennifer talked at the entrance of the school also praised Mr. Hayes' work. Margaret Sullivan, Sophie's mother who played the Queen of Hearts, often commented on how the teacher had helped her daughter overcome her shyness. Sophie was so quiet before she entered the theatre. Now she has much more confidence. Mr. Hayes has a special gift for working with these children. Patricia Chen, Daniel's mother who played the Mad Hatter, agreed. "My son has ADHD and often has trouble concentrating on long activities. But in Mr. Hayes's rehearsals, he stays focused for hours. It's amazing how he manages to keep their attention. Jennifer heard these comments and felt even more grateful that Emma was in such competent hands. Mr. Hayes had impeccable reputation built over 8 years at Lincoln Middle School. The plays he directed regularly won regional festivals. Former students returned to visit him, thanking him for having awakened in them the passion for the performing arts. The school's principal, Mrs. Patricia Hoffman, frequently praised the drama program at parent conferences, saying it was one of the differentiators that placed Lincoln Middle School among the best public schools in Austin. Everything seemed perfect, too perfect, as Jennifer would think weeks later, when reality began to reveal itself in a terrifying way. Emma would come home from rehearsals, bring the script home, and rehearse the lines with Jennifer before bed. "Mum, can you read the lines of the other characters for me to practice? The scene I like the most is when Alice questions who she really is after all the transformations. Mr. Hayes said that this is the most important scene, because it is about identity and self-discovery." Jennifer would take the script and read the lines of the other characters, while Emma played Alice with a surprising intensity for an 11-year-old. The girl really had talent. She could convey vulnerability and strength at the same time. She made dramatic pauses at the right moments. She modulated her voice to express different emotions. It was beautiful to see, and at the same time moving to see how her daughter was growing, developing her skills, pursuing her dreams. The nights of September passed like this, with an established routine and a sense of normality. Jennifer worked during the day, picked up Emma after rehearsals, had dinner together, reviewed homework, rehearsed lines from the play, and then Emma went to sleep, usually still mumbling parts of the script while closing her eyes. But in the 3rd week of September, something changed. It was subtle at first, so subtle that Jennifer almost didn't notice. Emma began to linger longer in the bathroom before leaving for school. Jennifer noticed because their morning routine was well established. They woke up at 6:30, had breakfast together at 7. Emma got ready at 7:20 to leave at 7:30. But that Monday, it was 7:25. And Emma was still in the bathroom. "Emma, is everything all right there?" "Let's be late, honey," Jennifer called, knocking lightly on the door. "I'm already leaving, Mom." Emma's voice sounded strange, weaker than usual. When her daughter finally opened the door, Jennifer immediately realized that there was something different. Emma's face was paler than usual, almost colorless. Her eyes, usually bright and expressive, looked tired, with slight dark circles under her eyes that Jennifer hadn't noticed before. "Don't you want to go today, my love? Feeling well?" "Yes, I do, Mom. I'm just a little nervous about the play," Emma replied quickly, grabbing her backpack and avoiding her mother's gaze. But Jennifer knew her daughter. He knew every expression, every tone of voice, every body language. And something there was not right. That tone of voice was not one of ordinary nervousness. It was something deeper, more disturbing. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she picked up her backpack. His gaze was distant, as if he was somewhere else mentally, fighting thoughts he didn't want to have. "Emma, if there's something bothering you, you can tell me. You know that, right? You can tell Mom anything." "I know, Mom. It's okay, really. It's just that Mr. Hayes is being very picky with the rehearsals, and I want to make everything perfect. Sometimes I'm afraid of disappointing him." Jennifer bent down to be at her daughter's eye level and gently held her shoulders. "Listen here. You will never disappoint anyone. You are amazing, talented, and you are dedicating yourself a lot. Mr. Hayes should be proud of his work. Don't put so much pressure on yourself, okay?" Emma nodded, but her eyes still carried that shadow that Jennifer couldn't fully identify. Something was different, but the girl clearly didn't want to or couldn't talk about what it was. In the car on the way to school, Emma sat quietly, staring out the window as Jennifer drove through the already busy streets of Austin that Monday morning. Usually, Emma spent the commute telling about something funny that had happened the day before, or planning what she would do during breaks with her friends. But that morning, silence. "What are you going to rehearse today?" Jennifer tried to strike up a conversation, worried about her daughter's unusual behavior. "I don't know. I think we're going to review the scenes from the first act. Do you want me to watch the rehearsal today? I can ask to leave work a little earlier." "No need, Mom." "It's okay," Emma replied too quickly, almost defensively. Jennifer felt that characteristic tightness in her stomach, that ancestral alarm that all mothers know, that inner voice that whispers something is wrong. But she didn't want to put pressure on her daughter. She didn't want to be that overprotective mother who saw problems where there were none. Maybe Emma really was just nervous about the responsibility of the lead role. Maybe it was just pre-adolescence coming up, with all the emotional changes that brings. Maybe Jennifer was overreading, reading too much into small signs that might not mean anything. When they pulled up in front of Lincoln Middle School, Emma quickly opened the car door, grabbed her backpack, and was about to leave when Jennifer held her hand. "Hey, did you forget something?" Emma turned and Jennifer pointed to her own cheek, a ritual they had had since Emma was little. The girl smiled, but it was a forced smile, which did not reach the eyes. He leaned over and gave his mother a quick kiss on the cheek. "I love you, Mom. I love you too, Princess. Anything, call me, okay? Anything, really." Emma waved and got out of the car, walking toward the entrance of the school, with steps that felt heavier than usual, as if each step required conscious effort. Jennifer watched until her daughter disappeared through the main gate, that tightness in her stomach intensifying, but unable to identify exactly what was causing that sensation. Throughout that workday, Jennifer couldn't concentrate completely. He was reviewing financial spreadsheets on the computer screen, but his thoughts went back and forth again to Emma, to that pale face, to those trembling hands, to that distant look. She took her cell phone several times, almost texting her daughter, but gave up. She didn't want to be invasive. She didn't want Emma to feel like she was being watched. At 5 in the afternoon, Jennifer left the office earlier than usual and drove straight to school. Rehearsals usually ended by 6, but she wanted to be there. She wanted to see Emma. She wanted to make sure everything was really okay. He parked in the school parking lot at 5:40 and walked to the auditorium. The door was ajar and she could hear voices inside. He stayed at the entrance without making a sound, just watching. Mr. Hayes was center stage with the cast around him. Emma was among the other children, practicing choreographed movements for one of the scenes. At first glance, everything seemed normal. The children laughed. Mr. Hayes made jokes while guiding. The atmosphere was light and productive. But then Jennifer realized something. Every time Mr. Hayes approached Emma to correct some movement or posture, the girl would stiffen. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Emma's shoulders tensed, her body leaning back slightly, as if in an involuntary reflex of withdrawal. And Mr. Hayes didn't seem to notice, or if he did, he didn't care. Jennifer felt a chill down her spine. Were you seeing things that didn't exist, or was there really something there? She shook her head, trying to push away negative thoughts. Emma was just tired, nervous, pressured. It was normal in a theatrical production, especially for an 11-year-old with the lead role. The rehearsal ended at 6 o'clock. The children began to grab their backpacks and leave the auditorium. Jennifer walked in and waved to Emma, who saw her and immediately ran towards her. "Hi, Mom. I didn't know you were going to arrive early. I was able to leave a little early today. How was the rehearsal?" "It was good. Tiring, but good." Mr. Hayes approached them with that professional smile he always wore when talking to his parents. "Mrs. Martinez, what a good surprise to see you here. Emma is doing wonderfully. She really has a special talent." "Thank you, Mr. Hayes. She is loving being part of the play. It is visible. By the way, Mrs. Martinez, I would like to talk to you about something. Emma has so much potential that I'm thinking of adding some extra scenes just for her. More complex scenes that will really highlight your skills. But this will require some individual rehearsals with me outside of regular hours to work on these scenes in more depth." Jennifer looked at Emma, trying to read her reaction. The girl was looking at the floor, biting her lower lip, her hands tightening the straps of her backpack. "Individual essays?" Jennifer asked, that internal alarm sounding a little louder. "Yes. It is common in more serious productions to work separately with the protagonists. It would be only once or twice a week, a maximum of 1 hour each session. I would do the same with any student who demonstrated this level of commitment." His words made sense. He was logical, professional, apparently well-intentioned. Jennifer looked around the auditorium, saw other parents talking to Mr. Hayes about the production, all smiling, all comfortable. Was she really seeing trouble where there wasn't? Of course, if it's going to help Emma develop her skills, why not? Perfect. So we started on Wednesday. "Emma, we met in room 14 at 4:30. It's quieter there, without the distractions of the large auditorium." Jennifer noticed Emma swallowing, but the girl didn't say anything. He just nodded. On the way home, Emma was even quieter than in the morning. Jennifer tried to strike up a conversation several times, but received only monosyllabic responses. When they got home and entered, Emma dropped her backpack in the hallway and went straight to the bedroom. "Emma, don't you want to have dinner first?" "I'm not hungry, Mum. I'm very tired. I'm just going to take a shower and sleep." Jennifer stood in the living room, listening to her daughter's footsteps climbing the stairs and the bedroom door closing. That tightness in my stomach was stronger now, almost painful. Something was wrong. She knew. He knew his daughter. He knew every detail of her behavior, and in the last few days, Emma was different. But what exactly was wrong? Jennifer couldn't identify it. That night, she hardly slept. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything she had observed. Emma's hands trembling, the pale face, the unusual silence, the physical reaction as Mr. Hayes approached, resistance to the individual test plan. But then I thought of all the satisfied parents, of Mr. Hayes's impeccable reputation, of his 8 years at school without a single complaint, of the achievements of the drama program. Was it possible that she was being paranoid? Was it possible that her maternal instinct was overdone this time? If this revelation is arousing in you a deep curiosity about what really happened, comment right now. I want more stories, and please leave your like on this video. Wednesday came faster than Jennifer would have liked. Emma woke up that even paler morning, and Jennifer noticed that her daughter had more pronounced dark circles under her eyes, as if she hadn't slept well for several days. During breakfast, Emma barely touched the food. "You need to eat something, my love. You can't go all day without eating." "I know, Mom. It's just that my stomach is half upset." "Feeling sick?" "I can take you to the doctor," Jennifer suggested, already reaching for her phone to cancel her work commitments. No. It's not like that at all. Just a little bit of nausea. It must be nervousness." Jennifer watched her daughter, noticing how Emma avoided eye contact, how her hands trembled when holding the glass of orange juice, how she breathed faster than usual. Everything about her screamed discomfort, even fear. But fear of what? "Emma, about this individual shoot today with Mr. Hayes. If you don't want to do it, just let me know. I can talk to him and tell him that we prefer that you continue only in group rehearsals." Emma looked up quickly, and for a moment Jennifer saw something there. Was it hope? Relief? But then the expression changed. It closed again. "No, Mom. It's okay. It's good for me. It will help me improve. Mr. Hayes knows what he is doing. But you seem so uncomfortable with the idea. I just get nervous about doing something wrong, about not living up to expectations. But I'll be fine." Emma's words said one thing, but her body said quite another. Jennifer felt that there was something her daughter wasn't telling her, but she couldn't understand what. She didn't want to force her. She didn't want Emma to feel pressured. But that feeling that something was wrong didn't leave her alone. Throughout that workday, Jennifer checked her phone obsessively. He sent 3 messages to Emma. "How are you? Is everything okay in school? Will there still be the rehearsal today?" Emma responded with short messages. "I am fine. Yes. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Jennifer left work, saying she had a family emergency. He drove at speed above the allowed speed to Lincoln Middle School. Arriving there at 4:20, he parked and watched the entrance, hoping to see Emma coming. At 4:25, she saw her daughter walking slowly down the corridor towards the building where room 14 was. Emma's steps were shuffling, reluctant, like someone walking towards something inevitable and unwanted. Jennifer got out of the car and followed her daughter into the distance, keeping herself out of sight. Emma entered Building B, where the art and music classrooms were located. Jennifer waited a few seconds and then went in as well, walking silently down the hallway. Room 14 was at the end of the hallway, a smaller room than the others, usually used for storage of theatre materials and smaller rehearsals. She got close to the door and realized that it was closed but not locked. I could hear voices inside, muffled. Mr. Hayes was talking something about voice projection and stage presence. It sounded completely normal, professional. Jennifer felt ridiculous. She was there, hidden in the hallway, peering into a perfectly innocent rehearsal. What was he doing? Acting like a paranoid, crazy mom. Mr. Hayes was doing his job, trying to help Emma improve her skills. And here she was, suspicious for no apparent reason. She was about to leave when she heard something that made her freeze. It was Emma's voice, soft, barely audible. "Please, Mr. Hayes, this is making me uncomfortable." Jennifer's heart raced. She glued her ear to the door, trying to hear better. "Emma, we need to work on physical contact for the scenes. In the theatre, actors need to be comfortable with proximity. This is normal, it is part of the profession, but I don't like it when you get that close. It's just an exercise, Emma. Great actresses need to overcome these discomforts. You want to be a great actress, don't you? You want your performance to be perfect, don't you?" There was silence. Jennifer was about to open the door when she heard footsteps approaching down the hallway. It was the school janitor, pushing a cleaning cart. "Hello, can I help with something?" he asked. Jennifer straightened up, trying to look casual. No, I was just waiting for my daughter. She's in a rehearsal here." "Ah, okay then." The janitor passed her and continued down the hallway. Jennifer looked at the door again, but the moment had passed. I could no longer stand there without looking strange. He left the building and returned to the car, but did not leave. He waited, watching the entrance to Building B. Exactly 1 hour later, at 5:25, Emma left. Even from afar, Jennifer could see that something was wrong. The girl walked with her arms crossed over her chest, hugging herself. His steps were fast, hurried, like someone running away from something. When he got closer to the parking lot and saw his mother's car, his eyes widened. Jennifer got out of the car and went to meet her daughter. "Emma, I've come for you. I thought I'd make a surprise." Emma didn't say anything, just got in the car quickly. Jennifer got on the driver's side and watched her daughter. Emma was shivering, not from cold, but from something deeper. His hands squeezed the straps of his backpack so tightly that his fingers were white. "How was the rehearsal?" "It was good," Emma answered automatically, but her voice was shaky, weak. "Emma, look at me." The girl turned slowly, and Jennifer saw tears in her eyes, tears that Emma was clearly struggling to hold back. "What happened inside?" "The truth, Emma. I need to know the truth." "Nothing, Mom. Nothing happened. I'm just tired." "It was an intense rehearsal. Mr. Hayes is very demanding. I heard you saying you were uncomfortable. I was outside the room and I listened." Emma froze. Her eyes widened, and for the first time in days, Jennifer saw real panic on her daughter's face. "Were you there? Did you hear? I heard part of the conversation." "Emma, what is he doing that makes you uncomfortable?" Emma began to cry, silent tears streaming down her pale cheeks. He is very close to me. She says that it is for theatre exercises, that actors need to be comfortable with proximity. But I don't like it, Mom. I don't like how close he gets, how he puts his hand on my shoulder and doesn't take it off for a long time. I don't like how he looks at me. But he says that it's normal, that it's part of the theater, that I'm being childish, and that if I want to be a real actress, I need to overcome these discomforts. Emma's words came out in a desperate gush, as if they had been held back for too long, and at last found a way out. Jennifer felt her blood run cold. That maternal instinct that had been sounding alarms for the past few days was now screaming at the top of its head. Something was very, very wrong. How long has this been going on? Since when have you felt this way? From the first week of rehearsals, he was always closer to me than to the other students. At first I thought it was because I had the lead role, but then it started to get weird. He started calling me to talk to myself after the group rehearsals. He said that I was special, that I had a talent that he rarely saw. And I liked that at first, you know. I felt important. But then he started getting very close, touching my shoulder, my arm, my hair. She said she was helping me with posture, with stage presence. But it seemed wrong, Mom. It seemed very wrong. And when I showed discomfort, he said that I was being childish, that I needed to grow up, that in professional theater things are like that. Jennifer felt anger rise up her throat, anger at Mr. Hayes, anger at herself for not having noticed sooner, for not having trusted that internal alarm sooner. Emma, listen well. You're not being childish. What you are feeling is real and valid. If something makes you uncomfortable, especially an adult touching you in a way you don't like, that's not normal. It doesn't matter what he says. It doesn't matter if he calls it theatrical technique or professional practice. If you don't want to, he doesn't have the right, but he is the teacher. He knows more than I do. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. No, Emma, you're not getting it wrong. Your body is telling you the truth. Your feelings are telling you the truth, and I should have paid more attention earlier. I'm sorry, my love. You should have realized that something was bothering you. I was afraid to tell, Emma admitted between sobs. I was afraid that no one would believe me. Mr. Hayes is so respected. All mothers love him. Everyone thinks he's amazing. I thought they would think I was making it up, that I was trying to get out of the play because I was nervous or afraid of failing. Jennifer pulled her daughter into a tight embrace, feeling Emma's small body tremble against hers. I believe in you. I will always believe in you, and I won't let it go on, do you hear me? I won't let anyone make you feel this way. But what are we going to do? I still need to do the rehearsals. The play is in November. He doesn't worry about the piece now. Let's solve it. I'm going to talk to the director. I'm going to do whatever it takes to protect you. Emma pulled away slightly and looked at her mother with red, swollen eyes. What if no one believes it? What if they think I'm making it up? So I'm going to make them believe. Somehow I'm going to do it. But what happened in the next few hours would destroy all the certainties she had about how to solve that situation. The next morning, Thursday, Jennifer set up an urgent meeting with director Patricia Hoffman. Emma did not go to school that day. Jennifer said that her daughter was sick and needed to stay home. In fact, Emma was very emotionally shaken after finally telling her what was happening, and Jennifer wasn't going to force her to return to that environment until the situation was resolved. Jennifer entered the principal's office at 9 o'clock in the morning. Patricia Hoffman was a woman in her 50s, grey hair tied back in a tight bun, reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. She had a reputation for being fair but strict. Someone who took the rules seriously and didn't tolerate unnecessary drama. Mrs. Martinez, thank you for coming. You said on the phone that it was urgent. Is Emma okay? No, Mrs. Hoffman. Emma is not well, and I need to report something very serious about the behavior of a teacher. The principal straightened up in her chair, her expression becoming more attentive. I'm all ears. Jennifer took a deep breath and began to tell everything Emma had reported. Mr. Hayes's inappropriately close behavior, the touches that made Emma uncomfortable, the comments about her having to overcome her discomfort, the private rehearsals in a closed room. As she spoke, Jennifer watched the director's expression, trying to read her reaction. Patricia Hoffman listened in silence, taking notes occasionally. When Jennifer finished, there was a moment of heavy silence in the office. The principal took off her glasses, rubbed her tired eyes, and then looked directly at Jennifer. "Mrs. Martinez, I understand your concern. I really get it. But I need to be honest with you. Mr. Richard Hayes has worked at this school for 8 years. In these 8 years, we have never, ever received a single complaint about inappropriate behavior from him. He is one of our most dedicated and successful teachers. His productions won state awards. Alumni constantly come back to thank him for how he changed their lives. I know that. I know his reputation. But Mrs. Hoffman, my daughter is telling me that she is uncomfortable. She's having nightmares. He is refusing food. She is visibly shaken. Don't you think this deserves at least an investigation? Of course it deserves investigation. But I also need to consider other possibilities. Emma has the lead role in the play. This brings a lot of pressure. Perhaps she's misinterpreting normal gestures of theatrical orientation because of nervousness. Maybe she's unconsciously looking for a reason to quit the play because the pressure is too much. Jennifer felt anger begin to boil. My daughter is not making it up. She's not misinterpreting. She knows the difference between career guidance and behavior that makes her feel uncomfortable. Mrs. Martinez, please try to understand me. If I begin a formal investigation against Mr. Hayes based solely on the perspective of an 11-year-old student without any concrete evidence, it could ruin the career of an exceptional teacher. I need something more substantial. Other witnesses, other victims, some physical proof, other victims. So you're admitting that it's possible that there's something wrong. I'm saying that I need to be careful. Serious accusations require serious evidence. And while you are being careful, what happens to my daughter? Should she continue to have private rehearsals with him? Should she continue to be exposed to situations that make her terrified? Of course not. I will immediately suspend private rehearsals. Emma can continue to participate only in group rehearsals where there is constant supervision. And I'm going to have a low-key conversation with Mr. Hayes about keeping appropriate distance from all students. But without more evidence, it's the most I can do right now. Jennifer left that meeting frustrated and feeling helpless. The headmistress hadn't completely dismissed her concerns, but she hadn't taken any real action to protect Emma either. Suspending private rehearsals was a start, but it wasn't enough. Mr. Hayes was still there. He still had access to Emma and other girls. He still had his untouched reputation, protecting him from real consequences. If you're here so far, it's because this story is stirring you. What follows will show the exact moment when everything changed, when Jennifer realized that she needed to go beyond official channels to protect her daughter. Therefore, at the end of this video, we will reveal the complete outcome with details that few know about how she obtained irrefutable evidence. Stay with me until the end. That afternoon, Jennifer told Emma about the meeting with the principal. The girl was curled up on the sofa in the living room, wrapped in a blanket, still looking fragile and scared. "So, does it mean that they will not do anything? Is he still a teacher?" Emma asked in a small voice. "Private rehearsals were cancelled. You don't have to be alone with him anymore, and the principal will talk to him about keeping his distance. But it will still be there. I'll still see him every day. I'll still have to be in group rehearsals with him. I know, my love. I know it's not ideal, but if you want, you can leave the play. You don't have to continue if it's hurting you." Emma thought for a long moment, silent tears falling again. "But I worked so hard for it. I wanted so much to be in this play. It's not fair that I have to give up because of him." Jennifer felt her heart tighten. Emma was right. It wasn't fair. It wasn't fair that an 11-year-old girl had to give up something she loved because an adult had behaved inappropriately. It was not fair that the predator remained in its position while the victim was the one who had to hide and give up. You're right. It's not fair. And we will not accept that. I'll figure out a way to solve this for real, I promise. But how, Mom? The principal does not believe it. No one will believe it. He is very respected. Jennifer ran her hand through her daughter's hair, thinking, How to prove something when it was the word of a child against that of a respected teacher. How to get evidence of something that happened in closed rooms without witnesses. And then an idea began to form in his mind. A risky idea, possibly even legally questionable, but an idea that could finally bring the truth to light. That night, after putting Emma to sleep, Jennifer stayed awake searching the internet. He looked up recording laws in Texas, about parental rights, about how to document inappropriate behavior by teachers. She read forums of mothers who had gone through similar situations. He read articles about how predators operate in school settings, how they use positions of authority to manipulate children, how they choose vulnerable victims who are least likely to be believed. The more I read, the more convinced I became of two things. First, that his instinct about Mr. Hayes was correct. His behavior followed exactly the patterns described in all articles about abusers in school environments. Second, that if she did not act, nothing would change. The principal would not do a real investigation without concrete evidence, and Mr. Hayes would continue to have access to Emma and possibly other girls. On Friday morning, Jennifer went to an electronics store and bought a micro camera with audio and video recording capabilities. It was small enough to fit in a backpack pocket without being noticed. He returned home and showed it to Emma. "Emma, I know this is going to sound scary, but I need your help. I'm going to put this camera in your backpack. If something inappropriate happens in rehearsals, we will have proof." Emma looked at the camera with wide eyes. "But what if he finds out? I'll hide it well. He won't find out. And I'll be very close, I promise. I'll be outside the auditorium for the entire rehearsal. If something happens, if you yell or call me, I'll run in. You're not alone in this anymore, you know? She is no longer alone." Emma nodded slowly, still startled but also looking a little relieved to finally have someone believe her and take action. "But he will no longer do private rehearsals. The principal forbade it, I know. But I still want to document how he acts during group rehearsals, how he treats you, how he looks at you, how he talks to you. Everything can be important. Okay, Mom. I trust you." Jennifer carefully positioned the camera in a side pocket of Emma's backpack, with the lens facing outwards but disguised among other materials. He tested it several times to make sure it worked, and that he could capture audio clearly. It was also configured so that it could access the recording in real time through an application on its cell phone via Wi-Fi. On Friday afternoon, Jennifer took Emma to the rehearsal. She stood outside the auditorium, sitting on a bench in the hallway with her cell phone in her hands, headphones connected, watching and listening to everything the camera captured. The first 30 minutes were relatively normal. Mr. Hayes guided the cast in a group scene, made posture corrections and voice projection, maintained a professional tone. Jennifer began to question whether she was really doing the right thing. He was there, basically spying on a teacher, recording without consent. Wouldn't he be exaggerating? But then the break was announced. Most of the children left the auditorium to go to the bathroom or drink water. Jennifer saw on camera that Emma had stayed, organizing her script notes, and Mr. Hayes approached her. "Emma, can I talk to you a moment?" His voice was low, almost intimate. Jennifer turned up the volume on the headphones, paying full attention. "Yes, Mr. Hayes?" He learned that his mother went to talk to the principal. "I heard that she made some complaints about our private shoots." There was a pause. Jennifer could see Emma from the camera video. The girl was stiff, clearly uncomfortable. "Me? I just told her I was nervous." "Nervous? Or did you say something else? Anything about feeling uncomfortable with my teaching methods?" Another pause. Emma looking at the floor. "Emma, look at me when I'm talking to you." The girl raised her eyes slowly. "I just want you to understand something. I have invested a lot of time and energy in you, to develop your talent, to give you opportunities that other students would never have, and this could all end if his mother continues to make unfounded accusations. Do you understand that?" Jennifer felt anger boiling through her veins. How dare he manipulate Emma like that? How dare I make it seem like she was the problem? I didn't want to cause trouble, Mr. Hayes. I know I didn't want to. You're a good girl, a special girl. That's why I chose her for the lead role. But you need to trust me, trust my work, trust that I know what's best for her development as an actress. Jennifer couldn't believe what she was hearing. He was manipulating Emma, making the girl feel guilty for having told the truth, using the position of authority to silence her. It was exactly the behavior she had read about the night before. Predators do that. They make the victim feel that they are special, that they have a unique connection with them, and then they use that to control and manipulate. I trust, Mr. Hayes, Emma replied in a faint, broken voice. Great. So we don't need to talk about it anymore, right? What happens in our rehearsals is between you and me. It's our creative process. Other people won't understand why they're not artists like us. Jennifer was shaking with anger now. He wanted to run into that auditorium, pick up Emma, and never leave her near that man again. But he forced himself to stay where he was, to continue recording. He needed more. He needed something so clear, so undeniable, that no one could ignore or make excuses. The other children started to come back from the break, and the conversation ended. The rest of the trial was normal, at least on the surface. But Jennifer had seen and heard enough to know with absolute certainty that her suspicions were correct. Mr. Hayes was not the dedicated teacher that everyone thought. He was a manipulator, someone who used his position of power to control a vulnerable 11-year-old girl. When the rehearsal ended, Jennifer turned off the recording and waited for Emma at the entrance of the auditorium. The girl came out with red eyes, clearly shaken by the conversation she had had with Mr. Hayes. In the car, Jennifer hugged her daughter tightly before starting the engine. Listen, I recorded everything that happened today. I overheard the conversation he had with you at halftime. Did you hear? Emma asked, her voice full of shame and fear. I listened, and I want you to know that none of that was your fault. Nothing. The way he spoke to you, trying to make you feel guilty for telling you the truth, trying to make you think you need to keep secrets from him, that's not normal. This is not how a teacher should act. I felt so bad, Mom. He made it seem like I was screwing up, that I was being ungrateful after everything he did for me. This is manipulation, Emma. That's exactly what bad actors do. They make you feel indebted to them, make you think you owe them something, and then they use that to control you. But you don't owe him anything. He's the adult, he's the teacher. It's his responsibility to make you feel safe and respected, and he's not doing that. Jennifer spent that weekend reviewing the recording several times, taking notes, preparing evidence. The conversation between Mr. Hayes and Emma was clearly inappropriate. He was trying to silence a child by making him keep secrets, using manipulative language. It was not evidence of physical abuse, but it was evidence of manipulative and inappropriate behavior by a teacher with a female student. On Monday morning, Jennifer returned to the principal's office, this time with her cell phone in her hands, ready to show the recording. Mrs. Hoffman, I have something you need to see and hear. The director sighed, clearly tired of what she saw as unnecessary drama. Mrs. Martinez, I have already said that without concrete evidence I cannot. I have evidence. I recorded one of the rehearsals on Friday. Did you record it? Without the teacher's consent. Mrs. Martinez, this may be illegal. Texas is a state of consent by a party for recordings. I, as a mother present at the venue, had the right to record. And anyway, my daughter's safety is more important than legal technicalities. Now please listen to this. Jennifer played the recording, focusing especially on the halftime conversation. He made the director hear Mr. Hayes telling Emma that she was special, that what happened in rehearsals was their secret, that other people wouldn't understand because they weren't artists like them, that Emma needed to trust him and not tell her mother anything else. Patricia Hoffman listened in silence, her expression getting progressively more serious. When the recording ended, she was silent for a long moment, fingers clasped on the table, clearly processing what she had just heard. That's worrying, she finally admitted. The language he uses, especially about keeping secrets and not trusting adults, is a red flag. I recognize that. So are you going to do something now? Are you going to open a real investigation? I will. I'm going to contact the school district today. They have protocols for this type of situation. Mr. Hayes will be temporarily removed while we investigate, and I'm going to need that recording as evidence. Jennifer felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. It was a step forward, but it also meant that it was becoming official, public. There would be consequences, difficult conversations, possibly even legal proceedings. There's one more thing, Mrs. Hoffman. I need to know if other students have gone through something similar, if Mr. Hayes has a pattern of behavior. I can't divulge information about other students, you understand. Privacy issues. I see. But if I find out on my own, if other families come to me, can I share this information with you? Of course. In fact, if there are other victims, it would greatly strengthen the case for more definitive action. Jennifer left that meeting knowing exactly what she needed to do. I needed to find other families, other girls who'd been affected by Mr. Hayes. If he really was a predator, Emma probably wasn't the only one. Predators rarely have a single victim. They have patterns, they repeat behaviors. That afternoon, Jennifer began her informal investigation in the school community. She talked to other mothers during the search for the children, asked careful questions about the drama program, about Mr. Hayes, about whether any children had shown discomfort or change in behavior. Most mothers had nothing negative to say. Margaret Sullivan still praised how Mr. Hayes had helped Sophie gain confidence. Patricia Chen still thought it was wonderful how he kept Daniel focused. But Jennifer noticed something. When he mentioned Mr. Hayes's name, some mothers were silent, their faces changing subtly, as if they were remembering something uncomfortable, but not wanting to talk about it. One of those mothers was Rebecca Foster. Jennifer didn't know her well, but she knew that her daughter, Melissa, had been part of the theater program the previous year, but had abruptly left in the middle of the year. Rebecca always seemed uncomfortable when the subject of theater or Mr. Hayes came up in casual conversation. Jennifer decided to approach her directly. She waited until the other mothers dispersed, and then approached Rebecca, who was alone, waiting for her youngest son, who was studying at the same school. "Rebecca, can I talk to you a moment? It's about something delicate." Rebecca looked around nervously, as if to see that no one else was listening. "Of course, Mrs. Martinez." "About what?" "About Mr. Hayes. About the theater program. Your daughter Melissa attended last year, right?" Rebecca's expression changed immediately. His face tensed, his eyes narrowed slightly, his hands tightened the handles of the bag he was holding. "He participated." "Why do you ask?" "My daughter Emma is having some problems with it. Serious problems. And I'm trying to understand if it's an isolated case or if there's a pattern." Rebecca was silent for long seconds, clearly struggling internally about what to say, how much to reveal. Finally, she looked directly at Jennifer and whispered, "Let's talk in my car." "Not here." The two women walked to the parking lot and got into Rebecca's SUV. As soon as the doors closed, creating a private space, Rebecca began to speak, words flowing out as if they had been held back for too long. "Melissa never told me exactly what happened. She was 10 years old at the time and was in the lead role of the spring play. She loved theater. She was always talking about being an actress when she grew up. But then, in the middle of the season, everything changed. She started having terrible nightmares. She woke up screaming. He stopped eating properly. I was locked in the bathroom for hours. He refused to go to school on rehearsal days." Jennifer listened with a pounding heart, recognizing every symptom Rebecca described. It was exactly what Emma had been through. I asked her what was wrong, but she couldn't or didn't want to talk. I just said that I didn't want to do theater anymore, that I wanted to leave the play. I thought it was pressure, nervousness to be in the lead role, but the symptoms were too intense to be just that. I took her to a therapist, a pediatrician. No one found anything physically wrong. The therapist said that Melissa was clearly traumatized by something, but she couldn't verbalize what. What did you do? I took her out of the play. I took her out of the theater program completely. The following year, when she went to middle school, I transferred her to another school. I thought changing the environment would help, and it helped. Little by little, she went back to being the cheerful girl she was before, but she never wanted to talk about theater again. She never wanted to act again. Did you suspect Mr. Hayes? Rebecca closed her eyes, tears beginning to fall. I was suspicious. God help me, I suspected, but he had no proof. Melissa did not speak, and he is so respected, so loved. I thought people would think I was crazy, that I was making terrible accusations without foundation. I thought they were going to sue me for defamation. So I just got my daughter out of that situation and tried to move on. You're not alone, Jennifer said softly. Emma went through the same thing, the exact same pattern, and I have evidence now. I have recordings of him being inappropriate with her, manipulating her, trying to get her to keep secrets. Rebecca opened her eyes, looking at Jennifer with an expression of simultaneous shock and relief. Do you have proof? Do you really have proof? I do. And I already took it to the director. He is being investigated now. But Rebecca, I need to know. Do you think Melissa would be able to speak now? If she knew that she was not alone, that there is another girl who went through the same thing, that there is evidence, do you think she would be able to tell what happened? Rebecca thought for a long moment, wiping tears from her face. She's better now, much better. He has been in therapy for a year. Maybe with the right support, she can do it. Let me talk to her. Let me see if she's ready. Thank you. And Rebecca, it wasn't your fault. You did what you thought was best to protect your daughter at the time. No one can blame you for that. But how many other girls suffered after my daughter? How many could I have protected if I had spoken? You can't think like that. It's his fault, only his. Not yours, not mine, not our daughter's. Only his. The two women exchanged phone numbers and promised to keep in touch. Jennifer got out of that car with a sense of validation, but also of growing anger. How many girls have suffered in silence? How many families have dealt with trauma without understanding where it came from? How many signs were ignored over the 8 years that Mr. Hayes worked at that school? That night, Rebecca called Jennifer. I talked to Melissa. It was difficult. She cried a lot, but she is willing to talk. Not to all the details yet, but she confirmed that Mr. Hayes did things that made her uncomfortable. It said that she was special, that she had unique talent, that they had an artistic connection that others would not understand. He made her stay after rehearsals for private conversations where he was very close to her, touched her hair, her shoulders. She said that great actresses need to be comfortable with physical intimacy on stage, and that he was just training her for that. Jennifer felt nausea rise up her throat. It was the same exact pattern, the same words, the same manipulation. Mr. Hayes had a script that followed with his victims. Rebecca, you need to take this to the principal. Melissa needs to give her testimony. The more evidence we have, the stronger the case gets. I know. I'm going to call the school tomorrow morning. Melissa is nervous, but she wants to do it. She said something that broke my heart. She said that if telling her story can prevent another girl from going through what she went through, then fear is worth facing. Your daughter is very brave. Both are. In the next 48 hours, 2 more families demonstrated. A mother whose name Jennifer didn't even know contacted her after hearing rumors about an investigation involving Mr. Hayes. Her daughter had participated in the theater program 2 years earlier and had also abruptly left in the middle of the season. Another mother, whose daughter was still on the show but in minor roles, admitted that her daughter always avoided being alone with Mr. Hayes and turned down any opportunity to have bigger roles because she didn't want private rehearsals with him. Jennifer began to document everything. He created a file with the recordings, with written testimonies of the mothers who agreed to speak, with a chronology of events. It took all of that back to director Patricia Hoffman, who could no longer deny the gravity of the situation. "Mrs. Martinez, I had no idea. 8 years he has been here, 8 years, and we never realized." "He was good at hiding it," Jennifer replied. "It chose vulnerable victims, girls who wanted a lot of success in the theater, who were less likely to speak out because they didn't want to miss out on their opportunities. He manipulated them by making it seem that their discomfort was artistic immaturity. And he built such a solid reputation that when signs appeared, families were afraid to speak out because they thought no one would believe him. The school district is taking this very seriously now. Mr. Hayes was formally suspended. He can no longer enter the school campus, and the police were notified. They will open a criminal investigation." Jennifer felt relief mixed with exhaustion. Finally, real action was being taken. But I also knew that this was just the beginning. There would be investigations, interviews, possibly trials. Emma and the other girls would have to relive traumas, tell their stories to strangers, prove that they were victims. If you're here, it's because this story deserves to be heard. I believe that what comes next will surprise you even more. Don't leave this video before you find out how it all ended, how Jennifer managed to not only expose Mr. Hayes, but also create permanent changes that would protect other children in the future. The police investigation began the following week. Detective Sarah Chen, a specialist in crimes against children, was assigned to the case. She was an Asian American woman in her 40s, with 15 years' experience dealing with child abuse cases in school settings. Her reputation was for being meticulous, empathetic to victims, but ruthless to perpetrators. Jennifer, Emma, Rebecca, and Melissa were the first to be interviewed. Emma's interview was particularly difficult. Detective Chen made her sit in a comfortable room, with toys and drawings on the walls, specifically designed to make children feel safe when giving traumatic testimonies. "Emma, you're doing something very brave today. I want you to know that it's okay to pause if you need to cry if you need to not remember all the details. We just want to hear your story, in your way, in your time," the detective said in a gentle but professional voice. Emma, with Jennifer sitting next to her holding her hand, told her everything. It began with the initial excitement of getting the lead role, the admiration I felt for Mr. Hayes at first. Then he talked about how his behavior gradually changed, how he started making comments about her being special, about having a unique connection, about her having talent that he rarely saw. "He started to touch me more," Emma said in a weak voice. "On the shoulder, on the arm, in the hair. He said he was helping me with posture, with stage presence. At first it didn't seem so wrong, but then it started to last longer. He would leave his hand on my shoulder for a long time while staying very close to me. I could feel his breath on my neck. It made me feel very uncomfortable, but I didn't know how to say it without sounding rude or ungrateful." The detective took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions, but mostly letting Emma speak at her own pace. And when private rehearsals began, what happened there? Emma took a deep breath, tears beginning to fall. He was even closer. He said that we needed to work on emotional intimacy for the scenes. He did exercises where I had to look into his eyes for a long time, exercises where he held my hand or my face. He said that great actresses need to be comfortable with touch, that in professional theater things are more physical. But it seemed wrong. It felt very, very wrong. "Did you tell him you were uncomfortable?" I tried. I once said I didn't like being so close. He said that I was being childish, that if I wanted to be an actress, I needed to grow up. He said he was disappointed in me because he thought I was more mature than the other girls. It made me feel bad, like I was failing, like it was my problem. Jennifer shook her daughter's hand, feeling anger burn through her veins again. To hear Emma describe Mr. Hayes' manipulation in detail, to see how he had twisted the mind of an 11-year-old girl to make her doubt her own instincts, was almost unbearable. Detective Chen continued with specific questions about dates, locations, exactly what Mr. Hayes had said and done. Then he interviewed Melissa, whose story echoed Emma's in disturbing detail. The words were almost identical. The progression of behavior followed the same pattern. Even the exercises he said were theatrical techniques were the same. When the detective presented her initial findings to the district attorney, the decision was clear. There was enough case for formal charges. Richard Hayes would be charged with psychological abuse of minors, educator misconduct, and attempted physical abuse based on the pattern of documented predatory behavior. The news exploded in the school community of Lincoln Middle School. Parents who had once defended Mr. Hayes were now shocked, some in denial, others furious that they had been deceived. Margaret Sullivan, who always praised his work with Sophie, reached out to Jennifer in tears. I didn't know. God help me, I didn't know. Sophie never said anything. But now that I think about it, it also changed during last year's theatrical season. She became more withdrawn. I thought it was pre-adolescence, but did he do something with her too? Jennifer hugged Margaret as the woman cried. You couldn't tell if Sophie didn't speak. It's not your fault, it's his fault alone. Margaret pulled Sophie from classes that day and took her to talk to Detective Chen. Sophie, who was now 12, initially denied that anything inappropriate had happened. But when she learned about Emma and Melissa, when she understood that she wasn't alone and that she wouldn't be blamed or judged, she also started talking. Mr. Hayes had made comments about her body, about how she was developing and becoming more feminine. He had touched her waist, saying that she was checking her posture. He had asked if she had a boyfriend, if she'd ever kissed someone, saying that these experiences would help in future romantic scenes. The number of victims continued to grow. By the end of the second week of the investigation, 7 girls had given testimony with varying degrees of inappropriate behavior by Mr. Hayes. The youngest was just 9 years old when the incidents began. The oldest was 13. They all shared common elements in their stories. He made them feel special, unique, talented. Then he introduced physical proximity gradually, always framed as a theatrical technique or artistic development. When they showed discomfort, he made them feel immature, problematic, ungrateful. Detective Chen explained to Jennifer that this was a classic pattern of grooming. Predators do not attack abruptly. They build trust, test boundaries gradually, normalize inappropriate behavior little by little, and use psychological manipulation to silence victims. Mr. Hayes had perfected this process over the course of 8 years, hiding behind his impeccable reputation as a dedicated educator. As the criminal investigation proceeded, Jennifer began working with other mothers to create systemic change at the school. It was not enough to remove Mr. Hayes. It was necessary to ensure that no other predator could operate in the same way in the future. They submitted a formal proposal to the district's school board. The proposal included several protective measures. First, absolute prohibition of any teacher being alone with a student in a closed room without supervision. If private rehearsals or one-on-one tutoring were necessary, they would have to take place in spaces with transparent windows, visible from hallways or with another adult present. Second, installation of security cameras in all rooms used for extracurricular activities, including auditorium, music rooms, gymnasium. Third, mandatory annual training for all employees on recognizing signs of abuse and grooming. Fourth, educational program for students on consent, appropriate boundaries with adults, and how to report behavior that makes them feel uncomfortable. The school board, under intense public pressure and threat of lawsuits from several families, approved all the measures. Implementation began immediately. Cameras were installed during the winter break. Teachers underwent intensive training for 2 days before the return of classes. A pilot safety and consent education program has been developed for middle school students. Jennifer also founded a support group for affected families. They met every week at the local community library, a safe space where mothers and daughters could share their experiences, process trauma collectively, and support each other through the healing process and the stress of participating in criminal investigation. Emma was in individual therapy twice a week with Dr. Linda Morrison, a psychologist specializing in childhood trauma. The first sessions were extremely difficult. Emma had recurring nightmares where Mr. Hayes appeared, felt intense anxiety about going back to school, had panic attacks when she saw men who looked like him in public places. But little by little, week after week, session after session, Emma began to process the trauma. She began to understand that nothing that happened was her fault, that she wasn't being childish or ungrateful by feeling uncomfortable, that his instincts were correct, that Mr. Hayes was the one who was wrong, completely wrong, and that he would be held accountable for his actions. Group therapy also helped immensely. Seeing other girls who went through the same experience, realizing that she was not alone, that she was not the only one, made Emma feel less isolated in her trauma. The girls formed an incredible support network with each other, becoming close friends, united by shared experience and the process of collective healing. This story is not for everyone. If you are here, it is because you want to know the truth behind the facts. Are you ready for the final reveal? To understand how Jennifer turned personal tragedy into a movement that would change school policies not only in Austin, but throughout the state of Texas? 3 months after the initial charges, Richard Hayes' case went to trial. The public prosecutor had substantial evidence, the recordings of Jennifer showing clear psychological manipulation, testimonies from 7 victims with consistent patterns of predatory behavior, testimony from grooming and child abuse experts explaining how Mr. Hayes had used classic sexual predator techniques. Hayes's defense tried to argue that it was all misunderstood, that he was just a dedicated teacher whose unconventional theatrical methods were misinterpreted by immature children and paranoid mothers. But the consistency of the testimonies, the clarity of the recordings, and the testimony of experts dismantled this narrative completely. Jennifer had to testify, describing how she noticed changes in Emma, how she investigated, how she recorded the evidence. The defense tried to attack her credibility by suggesting that she was an overprotective mother who had put ideas in Emma's head. But Jennifer remained firm, calm, articulate. He presented a detailed chronology, showed that he had tried to believe that everything was fine, that he only acted when evidence became undeniable. Emma also had to testify, something Jennifer feared would be extremely traumatic for her daughter. But Emma, with the support of her therapist and careful preparation by the prosecutor, gave powerful testimony. He spoke clearly and directly about what Mr. Hayes had done, how he had made her feel, how she tried to resist but was manipulated and silenced. The most devastating part of her testimony came when the prosecutor asked how all of this had affected her. Emma, with tears falling but a firm voice, replied, "He stole something from me. It stole my innocence, my trust, my love for theater. I loved acting. It was my dream. And now, every time I think about the stage, plays, anything related to theater, all I feel is fear and disgust. He took my passion and turned it into trauma. And for that, I will never forgive him." The jury deliberated for only 4 hours. They came back with a guilty verdict on all charges. Psychological abuse of minors, 8 charges. Improper conduct of an educator, 8 charges. Attempted physical abuse, 3 charges based on cases where the behavior had progressed beyond psychological manipulation to clearly inappropriate physical touching. At the sentencing hearing 2 weeks later, Judge Thomas Bradford, known for being tough on crimes against children, looked directly at Richard Hayes before handing down the sentence. "Mr. Hayes, you were in a position of trust. Parents entrusted their children to their care. The school trusted you to educate and protect vulnerable students. You have violated that trust in the most disgusting way possible. He used his authority, his reputation, his charisma to manipulate innocent girls. It made them doubt their own instincts. You made them feel guilty for the discomfort you caused. He hid behind rhetoric about art and professionalism, while satisfying his own predatory desires. The scars you left on these girls will last for years, possibly a lifetime. Some will never pursue their artistic dreams again because of what you've done. Some will never again completely trust authority figures. You destroyed something precious in each of them. And for this reason, this court sentences you to the maximum allowed by law. Richard Hayes was sentenced to 15 years in prison without the possibility of parole. He would be registered as a sex offender for life after serving the sentence. I could never work with children or adolescents again in any capacity. His teaching license was permanently revoked. When the sentence was read, Jennifer felt Emma grab her hand tightly. He looked at his daughter and saw tears of relief falling down her face. "It's over, Mom. It's really over," Emma whispered. Jennifer hugged her daughter tightly, allowing herself to finally feel the full weight of everything they had been through in the past few months. The exhaustion, the fear, the anger, all came to the surface at once. But along with that also came a sense of victory, of justice, of validation. She had trusted her maternal instinct even when everyone doubted. She had fought for her daughter when it would have been easier to give up. It had persisted even as officials initially downplayed its concerns, and in the end, justice was done. Outside the courthouse, several families gathered. Rebecca and Melissa were there, as were Margaret and Sophie, and the other families who had been affected. They hugged each other, cried together, shared a sense of collective relief. A local journalist approached, asking for an interview. Jennifer initially hesitated, not wanting to expose Emma or the other girls anymore. But then she thought about all the other children who might be in similar situations, all the other mothers who might be ignoring signs like she almost did. He agreed to speak, as long as they protected the girls' identities. "I want other mums to know that maternal instinct is real," Jennifer said to the camera. "If something seems wrong, it's probably wrong. If your child shows fear or discomfort with an adult, believe them. It does not matter how respected a person is, how good his reputation, how convincing his explanations are. If your daughter says something is wrong, investigate. Don't give up just because authority figures try to minimize your concerns. Trust your instincts, trust your child, and fight with everything you have to protect them." The interview aired on local news that night and quickly went viral on social media. Thousands of people shared, commented, told their own stories of abuse they had suffered in school settings and had never reported. Richard Hayes' case has opened up important conversations about child protection, about how predators operate in positions of authority, about the importance of believing children when they show discomfort. The impact went beyond Austin. The Texas Department of Education has begun a statewide review of child protection policies in schools. Lawmakers proposed a law, informally dubbed the Emma Act, that would make it mandatory to implement protective measures similar to those Jennifer and other mothers had proposed for Lincoln Middle School. The law would include requirements for supervision, installation of cameras, training of employees, and education of students about consent and appropriate limits. Jennifer was invited to testify before the state legislature's Education Committee. It was terrifying to stand in front of politicians and legislators, but she prepared her testimony carefully, focusing not on traumatic details, but on the systemic changes needed to prevent future cases. "Predators thrive on secrecy and isolation," she told lawmakers. "They choose environments where they can be alone with children without supervision. They build impeccable reputations that make them untouchable. They manipulate children to keep secrets. Our responsibility as adults, as educators, as a society, is to eliminate the conditions that allow predators to operate." We can't rely solely on background checks or reputation. We need transparency, oversight, and ongoing education. We need to make it impossible for predators to find opportunities for abuse. The Emma Act was passed by an overwhelming majority 6 months later. Public schools across Texas would have to implement comprehensive protective measures by the start of the next school year. The governor signed the law in a public ceremony where Emma, now 12, was present next to her mother. Meanwhile, Emma continued her healing process. She was still in therapy. She still had difficult days where traumas came back to the surface. But she was also rediscovering her strength, her resilience, her voice. She began to participate more actively in the support group, not only receiving support, but also offering it to younger girls who were beginning their healing journeys. One thing Emma made clear was that for the time being, she didn't want to return to the theater. Trauma was very much associated with stages and rehearsals, but she discovered a new passion. He began to write. She wrote stories about brave girls who faced monsters, who saved themselves, who turned pain into power. Her therapist said that this was a healthy part of the healing process, turning trauma into artistic creation. Jennifer never went back to being exactly who she was before all this happened. She was more vigilant now, more attentive to subtle signs that something was wrong. But she was also more connected with Emma. Her relationship with her daughter had deepened through shared experience. Emma knew with absolute certainty that her mother would always believe in her, always fight for her, always protect her no matter the cost. The support group Jennifer founded continued to meet even after the criminal case was solved. It has become a permanent resource for families dealing with the consequences of child abuse. Jennifer, Rebecca, and other mothers formed a non-profit organization dedicated to child protection education and advocacy for stronger school safety policies. Before we continue to the end of this incredible journey, help bring real stories to those who really care. If you want to be part of this mission of protection and awareness, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive more stories that can save lives. 2 years after the trial, Jennifer was invited to speak at a national conference on child safety in Chicago. It was a large event with educators, legislators, activists, and experts from all over the country. She was nervous. She had never spoken to such a large audience, but she knew she had an important message to share. Emma, now 13, went with her. The girl had expressed a desire to start using her voice too, to help other children who were going through what she went through. Her therapist supported the decision, saying that Emma had processed enough trauma and that advocacy could be an empowered part of her healing journey. On stage at the conference, in front of hundreds of people, Jennifer told the full story. From the first subtle signs that he almost ignored, to the decision to record evidence, to the battle to be taken seriously by authorities, to the final victory in court and legislative changes that resulted. But the most powerful part of the performance was when Emma took the stage next to her mother. The audience was completely silent as the teenager spoke into the microphone in a clear, firm voice. "I want you to know what kids feel when something is wrong. We feel it, but many times we have no words to explain it, or we are afraid that we will not be believed, or we have been manipulated into thinking that the problem is ours." Adults need to pay attention not only to what children say, but to what our bodies and behaviors are showing. If a child suddenly doesn't want to go somewhere they once loved, there's a reason. If she seems scared of a certain adult, there's a reason. If she's having nightmares and sudden changes in behavior, there's a reason. Please do not ignore these signs. Please ask questions. Please believe us even when the truth is hard to hear. Emma paused, tears in her eyes but voice still firm. "What happened to me changed my life. It took something I loved and turned it into a source of pain. But it also showed me that I'm stronger than I thought. It showed that my mother will always be by my side. He showed that telling the truth, even when it is scary, can protect others. If my story can make an adult pay more attention, can make a child feel like they can talk about something that makes them uncomfortable, can change a policy that allows predators to operate, then everything I've been through will have meaning. The audience rose in standing ovation. Jennifer hugged Emma on stage, both crying, feeling the weight and power of the moment. They had turned tragedy into purpose, trauma into advocacy, pain into systemic change that would protect countless children. After the conference, dozens of people came to share their own stories, to thank them for giving voice to the experience that many had endured in silence. Educators asked for resources to implement protection programs in their schools. Lawmakers in other states have asked for information about the Emma Act to replicate in their territories. Mothers of abuse victims have asked for advice on how to navigate legal and school systems to protect their children. Jennifer and Emma returned to Austin exhausted, but also energized. They had found purpose in trauma. They had turned destructive experience into a force that could create real change in the world. In Austin, Lincoln Middle School was a completely different place now. The cameras installed in all extracurricular activity rooms, strict policies on adult supervision, mandatory annual training for all employees, educational program for students on consent, limits, and how to report inappropriate behavior, discreet memorial in the school garden where 7 flowers had been planted, 1 for each victim who spoke, symbolizing courage and renewal. Emma returned to Lincoln Middle School the following year, not without anxiety, but with a determination not to let what happened define her entire school experience. She avoided the auditorium. She wasn't ready for that space yet, but she participated in other activities. She joined the Creative Writing Club, where she channeled her emotions into powerful stories about overcoming and courage. Her teachers noted exceptional talent in her words, the emotional depth that only comes from those who faced darkness and chose to find light. Jennifer watched her daughter rebuild her life with a mixture of pride and lingering pain. Pride in the incredible resilience Emma showed, pain for knowing that her daughter had lost part of her childhood innocence in such a brutal way, but also deep gratitude for having reached the other side, for having survived, for having transformed tragedy into significant change. There were still difficult moments. Emma had days when she couldn't get out of bed, where traumas came back with full force. Birthdays and specific dates triggered memories. Seeing news about other cases of abuse in schools made her anxious and angry. But she had a solid support network now. He had his mother, always present, always believing in her. She had her therapist, helping her process complex emotions. There was the group of survivors, girls who understood exactly what she had been through, and he had renewed purpose, knowing that his courage to speak out had protected other children, had changed laws, had created safer systems. Jennifer has also changed profoundly. She quit her corporate job and began working full-time at the non-profit she had founded with other mothers. The Advocacy Protection Initiative, as they called it, was dedicated to educating communities about signs of abuse, training educators to recognize predatory behavior, and supporting families navigating legal systems after complaints. The salary was less than what he earned before, but the purpose was infinitely greater. Rebecca Foster became co-director of the organization. Melissa, her daughter, now 13, and in a different school, was thriving. She had returned to the theater, not letting Mr. Hayes permanently steal her passion. She was in community school production, playing minor roles for the time being, but gradually rediscovering her love for acting. Her healing process was different from Emma's, reminding everyone that there is no right or wrong way to overcome trauma. Each person finds their own path. The other girls also followed their individual recovery journeys. Sophie had become a vocal advocate for victims' rights despite her young age. Margaret, her mother, processed intense guilt for not noticing the signs, but family therapy was helping both of them understand that the blame belonged solely to Mr. Hayes. Other families dealt quietly, choosing privacy while processing trauma, and Jennifer respected that, offering support without pressure. The case of Richard Hayes created waves far beyond Austin. Other school districts in Texas began implementing similar policies even before the Emma Act was passed, recognizing the urgent need for stronger protection. National education conferences have begun to include mandatory sessions on abuse prevention and grooming recognition. Universities that trained prospective teachers added modules on appropriate boundaries and professional ethics with minors. The media covered the case extensively, not just in the early days, but in ongoing follow-ups. Special reports explored how predators operate in school environments, how they build reputations that make them untouchable, how they choose vulnerable victims. Experts were interviewed, explaining the psychology of grooming, the importance of believing in children, the need for transparency and supervision in all adult-child interactions in educational contexts. But for Jennifer and Emma, it wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about making sure that no other mother had to feel that terror of realizing that her child was in danger, that no other child had to carry the weight of abuse in silence, afraid of not being believed, that protection systems were so strong that predators could no longer find loopholes to operate. 3 years after the trial, Jennifer received an unexpected letter. It was from a mother in Dallas, almost 200 miles away. The woman wrote that she had seen Jennifer and Emma's story in the news years earlier. At the time, her own daughter was showing signs of discomfort with the gymnastics coach, but she was ignoring it, thinking it was just competition nervousness. But after seeing Jennifer's interview, after hearing about the importance of trusting maternal instinct and believing in signs that children demonstrate, she decided to investigate further. He discovered that the coach had a history of inappropriate behavior that had been suppressed for years. Other girls had complained but were silenced. Dallas's mom faced initial resistance from the gym, the gymnastics community, other parents who adored the coach. But she persisted, inspired by Jennifer's story. He got evidence, went to the police, and eventually the coach was arrested. 10 girls were identified as victims. "I wanted you to know that your courage saved my daughter and 9 other girls," the letter said. "If you hadn't spoken publicly, if you hadn't shared your story even when it was painful, I would have ignored my instincts. I would have let my daughter continue in a dangerous situation. You gave me the courage to trust what I was feeling, to take action even when everyone said I was wrong. You saved girls you will never meet in a city you have never visited." That is his legacy. "Thank you is not enough, but it is all I have to offer. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for using your pain to protect other children." Jennifer cried when she read that letter, shared with Emma that she was also moved. It was powerful confirmation that everything they had been through, all the trauma and pain and struggle, had meant something greater. It had created waves of protection that reached beyond what they could see or measure. Emma, now 14, was starting high school. She was still in therapy. She would probably do it for many years to come. But she was thriving. His grades were excellent. She had a solid group of friends who supported her. He still wrote constantly, had won an award in a statewide creative writing competition with a personal essay on overcoming trauma. "I was considering a career in psychology or law, wanting to continue helping people who were going through similar experiences." The relationship between mother and daughter was stronger than ever. They had gone through fire together and came out the other side not only intact, but more united. Emma knew with absolute certainty that her mother would always be there, would always believe in her, would always fight for her. Jennifer had proven this in the most profound way possible, and Emma was determined to honor that fierce protection by living full and meaningful lives, not letting Mr. Hayes define who she was or who she would become. Jennifer often thought about that night years ago when Emma finally told her what was happening. I thought about how easily I could have ignored the signs, believed Mr. Hayes's explanations, assumed that Emma was just being dramatic or nervous. How many mothers do just that? How many ignore that internal alarm because they don't want to appear paranoid or overprotective? How many children suffer in silence because adults around do not want to see the inconvenient truth? This story teaches us that protection is not about paranoia or seeing danger everywhere. It's about being mindful, about knowing your child deeply enough to notice when something changes, about trusting instincts that have evolved over millennia specifically to protect our children. It's about believing children even when the truth is hard to accept, even when accusing a respected figure seems impossible, even when everyone around says you're exaggerating. Jennifer learned that predators don't look like monsters. They look like dedicated teachers, charismatic coaches, respected community leaders. They build impeccable reputations specifically to have access to victims and protection from prosecution. They are patient, calculating, master manipulators. And that's exactly why mothers need to be more vigilant, more confident in their instincts, more willing to ask tough questions and confront authorities when necessary. Jennifer's courage was not in not being afraid. It was in acting despite fear. To investigate even when everyone said she was wrong. To record evidence even without knowing if it would be legal. To persist even when the principal initially downplayed her concerns. To believe Emma even when it would have been easier to believe the reassuring explanations of a respected teacher. Real courage is not the absence of fear. It is action despite fear when something you love is in danger. Today, when Jennifer speaks at schools or conferences, she always ends with the same message. You know your child better than anyone else in the world. If something seems wrong, trust it. Investigate, ask questions. Don't accept vague explanations or attempts to make you feel paranoid. No reputation, no position of authority is more important than your child's safety. And if you find that your worst fears are real, know that you're not alone. There is a community of mothers and fathers who have been through this, who understand, who will support you. Reporting abuse is scary, but letting it continue is unthinkable. Choose courage. Choose your child always. Emma also began speaking at some events when she felt emotionally ready. His message to other children was simple but powerful. If any adult makes you feel uncomfortable, it's not your fault. If someone asks you to keep secrets, especially about physical touch or private conversations, it's a red flag. If you feel that something is wrong, even if you can't explain exactly what, trust that feeling and seek help. Tell your parents, your teachers, any adult you trust. Keep telling until someone believes and acts. You're not alone, you're not making it up, and you deserve protection and security. Richard Hayes's 15-year sentence meant he wouldn't get out of prison until at least 2040, when he would be over 50. Emma would have been almost 30. She would have lived almost 2 decades free of him, built a full life, overcome traumas, become a strong woman he could never imagine. And when he finally got out, it would be as a registered sex offender, never able to work with children again, always bearing the mark of what he did. Justice did not erase what had happened, but it guaranteed that he would pay a significant price and that other children would be protected from him in the future. Jennifer and Emma planted a tree in their backyard on the 3rd anniversary of the trial, a cherry tree that blooms bright pink every spring. "It's our tree of resilience," Emma said, as she placed the small sapling in the hole they had dug together. "It will grow strong and beautiful as we are doing, and every spring when it blooms, let's remember that beauty can come after darkness, that growth is possible after pain, that we survived and prospered." Jennifer hugged her daughter, both looking at the fragile sapling that would one day be a majestic tree. "Yes, my love, we survived, and we will make sure that other families also survive. That is our promise." This story could have ended in tragedy. It could have been about children whose signs were ignored, whose trauma was not validated, who grew up carrying invisible scars and broken trust. But it wasn't. It was a story about a mother who trusted her instincts, even when it seemed impossible, about a daughter who found the courage to speak up even when she was afraid, about a community that eventually came together to protect its most vulnerable members, and about systemic changes that will protect future generations of children. It is not a story with a perfectly happy ending. Emma still carries scars, still has difficult days, is still on a healing journey that will continue for years. But it is a story of survival, of courage, of justice, and most importantly, of hope. Hope that when mothers trust their instincts and fight for their children, real change is possible. Hope that predators can be exposed and blamed. Hope that traumatized children can heal and thrive. Hope that individual tragedies can create waves of protection that save countless other lives. If you're a mom or dad reading or listening to this story, let it remind you of the power you have. The power to protect, to believe, to act. Your instinct exists for reason. Your voice matters. Your courage can change everything. Don't be afraid to ask tough questions, to challenge authorities, to investigate when something seems wrong. Your child is counting on you to be their shield against dangers they can't face on their own. If you are a young person going through something similar to what Emma went through, know that it is not your fault, that you deserve to be protected and believed, that there are adults who will listen to you and take action. Keep looking until you find someone who believes. Your safety and well-being are more important than anything else. And if you are an educator or work with children, let this story be a reminder of the immense responsibility you have. Children are entrusted to your care. This trust is sacred. Maintain appropriate boundaries at all times. Be on the lookout for signs that colleagues may be acting inappropriately. Create environments where children feel safe to speak up when something is wrong. Be part of the solution, part of the safety net that every child deserves. Jennifer Martinez never imagined she would become a national child protection advocate. She was just an ordinary mother trying to raise her daughter as best she could. But when her son was in danger, she found extraordinary courage. That courage not only saved Emma, but created a legacy of protection that will continue to help children for generations. That's the power of a mother who trusts her instincts and refuses to give up, even when the path is scary and uncertain. This story is dedicated to all mothers who feel that inner alarm and have the courage to act. To all children who find the strength to speak even when they are afraid. To all survivors who turn pain into purpose. And to all who believe that change is possible when we face difficult truths with courage and determination. You're not alone. Your voice matters. And together we can create a safer world for all children. Don't go out yet. Continue on this journey of stories that touch the heart and transform lives. The next video on our channel will appear here on the screen right now, bringing another heartwarming story about motherly courage and family protection that you don't want to miss. If this story moved you, if it made you reflect on protection, maternal instinct and courage to act, share it with other mothers, with family members, with anyone who needs to hear that trusting our instincts can save lives. Leave your comment telling us what you think, if you've been through a similar situation, or if you know someone who has. Your story can help someone else find the courage to take action. A big hug, and see you in the next heartwarming story that will prove once again that mother's love is the most powerful force there is.